Welcome to the Company of One podcast. I'm Dale Callahan, your host. We are looking today at startup money and the issue of, do you need startup money? How much startup money do you need? How do you get it? What we're doing here, this is the Company of One podcast, and we're here to help you try to take more control of your income, whether it's a day job, which is what we typically spend a lot of time talking about, or also for those of you wanting to start a company. One of the things that we talk about here in this, or the Company of One model, is that no matter whether you're working independently on your own entrepreneurial activity, or you are working for somebody else in a big company, it's the same thing. You are working and serving other people, bringing money in your pocket. You've got the same responsibilities. But today we want to look at specifically those of us that want to jump into something specific, startup type of activity, startup business. And so one of the common things I hear, and I'm just going to walk you through kind of a couple of different segment scenarios, if you will, about this, because this is a prevalent issue. A lot of mistakes are made. One mistake that's made is people don't start doing something because they don't have any money. That's a mistake. You'll see what I mean. I'm driving to the point. You generally don't need the money you think you need, and most startups, by the way, most startups in the United States start with less than $7,000. Most, I mean, by far most, and many started with nothing. The company Zappos, by the way, started out with nothing. So let's just talk about that. How do I get there? What do you do with that? For me to say you don't really need anything to start up doesn't really help you. So how do we think about this? So let's first think about the myth that we see in startup capital. So whether you're, I mean, some people, the term venture capital and angel capital, that means something to you. For some of you, you're like, I've heard that, but I don't know what it means. I want to just kind of talk through, I mean, what those are. Those are professional investors who invest in your company. There's only two ways you can get money for there's three main ways to get money for your business. And one is what we call bootstrapping, and that is your own money. That's the way to go. By the way, that's the way to go for all of the others too. That's the way to get started. The second one we see is loans. Going to the bank to get a loan. Don't. Bad news. I'm with Dave Ramsey here. That's just bad news. Number three is equity, where somebody's invested or they bought. When they say invested, they mean they bought part of your business. They own part of your business. They somewhat become a boss, depending on how much they invested. If you're invested with venture capital or angel capital, you've got a boss. I mean, you're right back in the corporate grind, but different. But you've got a boss. So those things that we see out here. I mean, the first thing we see is the myth of starting a company. We often hear stories of entrepreneurs starting with venture capital. And these great wild stories of, we got so much investment. You hear all this stuff. I've got round one and round two, and all that's true. And there are businesses who do that, and there are businesses that may require that. If you're a pharmaceutical startup and you've got a new medical drug that you've invented in your kitchen sink, you're going to need money because it costs a lot, or you're going to need a partner or something. But that's rare. That's very rare that you have to have that. And matter of fact, you need to start with what you have, even if you're going to end up with that, aka Zappos. They started with nothing and ended up with investors. So what you really need is customers. And it doesn't matter that you don't have all the bells and whistles yet. You need people who are willing to buy what you have to offer. Let me just tell you, having capital, cash, without customers is really fancy way to go broke. I know. I've been involved in there was 3 startups going on at the same time, and I was involved in all 3 of them. One of them had an infusion of cash, and we pretty much had all the cash we needed. The investors would keep putting money in. That one went broke because it didn't really have a strong customer base. The other one started with basically nothing, and that one's still living today and making money. So what you need is customers, and so if you're sitting here thinking about this, I'm trying to just take some of the pressure off of you that you've got to go do this, because I think it's a delay tactic for a lot of us. We don't have the capital. So I'm saying you do have the capital. You have it very easy. So let me kind of give you, let me just quickly throw in a story here of a client of mine, we'll call him John, that wanted to do things, wanted to start a consulting gig, needed some capital for advertising because he needed to develop a website, logo, branding, brochures, the whole 9 yards. So it wasn't like I need a ton of capital to hire a ton of people, but it still was a significant amount of money he was looking for. And so we kind of we put the brakes on him and said, okay, what do you really need? What he needed was a customer. And so what he went out there is he made a list. Now, obviously, he was already in the industry he was doing consulting for. And so he made a list of 10 possible people he could go talk to. He went and talked to them. He ends up with one customer not paying what he wanted, but hey, he got a start, and it parlayed into a couple of other things, and boom, he had a business. And I remember him saying, I still don't have a website and stuff like that, but I got revenue. I got money coming in the door. That's what you need. All that other stuff is, it's not that those things are not important at some point, but at startup, they're a distraction. Because you want to get as fast as you can from, hey, I have this idea in my head, or or people I want to help, or service I want to provide. I want to get from there to money coming in the door as fast as possible. Because that gives you so many things you just can't imagine. That gives you clarity that you don't have, and you don't. Nobody does. Nobody has clarity at the beginning. That gives you feedback from customers, real customers who paid you real money. That gives you focus because they tell you what they really care about. A lot of the things we think about in a business, we think about all the things we could do, and our customers don't care about all that. They'll tell us what they want us to do once we engage. It's a weird thing. We can sit here in our offices or our homes or our chairs or coffee shops, sitting there drinking in all of our Starbucks we want to drink, and think. And we could even talk to people. But until somebody pays cash, and it doesn't have to be a ton of cash, but until somebody starts paying you cash, you get real feedback, and it's real feedback that matters, and that's what you're looking for here. And that's what John got. John got to that point, and then it helped him clarify what he was doing. And he did, in his case, we won't go into his details, but he was this big. He was going to do all these services, and he realized what they wanted was this one thing. He had this one thing he was really good at, that the industry needed. Everybody, they could get all that other stuff. They needed that one thing that was his experience, that was golden, and that's where his money was made, and still today. So let's just shift. I want to shift you to. Here's the shift I want you to make. If you're thinking about this, and if you're here with me, you're probably thinking about this. Stop thinking about what you need to buy. That means nothing. You don't need to buy anything, actually. Start thinking about who you can help right now. Forget what you've got. I mean, businesses exist for one reason, and it's to solve other people's problems. The reason people pay you money, just like on your day job, right? The reason they pay you money is because they don't want to do it themselves, and you can. Maybe you're more qualified, you're better at it, but frankly, they're paying you because they don't want to do it. I mean, you've ever had a homeowner project or something, if you're somewhat of a handyman, and you may say, I don't want to do that one. don't have time, don't it's too frustrating, too high up on a ladder, whatever your logic and reason is that you didn't want to do it and you want to hand it off, it's just because you didn't want to do it. And you get somebody else that does it, and maybe they're great on the ladder, maybe they're great at what you're doing because you didn't want to learn it, because you could have learned it on YouTube, right? So that's why business exists. They exist not for websites, not for logos, not for LLC paperwork and all that kind of junk. That's there, but they exist to solve problems. So what you need to be thinking about is, what problems do you solve? And I will, in my experience, most of us overthink that. We try to get complex. We'll think, well, that problem's too simple, so I need to get more complicated, right? I need to have more bells and whistles to it, and that's not usually what happens. I sat in a case with where a company was trying to raise capital to develop some software, and the software was about serving legal industry. And they had built one little thing that solved one little bitty problem, and so I sat at the table, and I wasn't on their board. I don't know why I was there, I forget. But there was a couple of lawyers in the room that were there also, and we were being asked to review this. And they presented their one little thing. Here's what the software does right now. It solves this one little problem. And then they said, and they had this huge list of, here's all the problems when we're done with it. Here's what it will solve, and we need $200,000 or whatever to do this. And the lawyer, the main lawyer in the room, said, what you just presented that you already have working, I'll pay you for right now. That's a problem that legal firms have. And then they started to argue with the attorney, and there was another attorney in the room that he kind of spoke up and said the same thing. I agree. That's a viable product you got right now. And so we spent 30 minutes trying to talk this company into selling a product you had already built. You just need to clean it up and send it out there, and people would buy it. Cash coming, right? And by the way, nobody's invested a dime. They were a company already, so they had, they were using their own bootstrapping money. They never listened. By the way, they went broke. The whole company went broke. So that's just we see that all the time. I'm making fun of them, but that happens all the time, that we have these big visions, but forget your vision. Solve people's problem. That's what they pay for. So let me kind of talk about a framework. 3 steps to start without money. So number 1, define the problem you solve. Now you're going to be wrong. Just be okay with that. You're going to be wrong, but let's at least start engaging with real people. Listen to the problems they have and say, I can solve that problem. You've probably been solving that problem for years in your own company. It's so second nature to you, you don't even think it's a problem. There's your clues, right? When it's like, this is too silly easy. The second thing is find one person. So define that. Find one person with that problem. Now, you don't have to go in that order. Maybe you find and listen to the people with the problems, and then you define the problem. But you're looking for one niche problem that maybe you've heard over and over again, or you've seen in your own experience, and make them an offer. Step 3. That did not sound really super complicated, did it? I had a consult with a company not too long ago, and they were talking about their challenges in managing the startup process. Now, they were already profitable and they were moving along, but how do they manage the company? And it sounds like a silly question. How do you manage a company with just a few employees? Big companies pay for these management organizations, but they were like, how do we just figure out who's doing what? How do we keep up with the flow of things? There's a few of us. There's a lot of little things going on, and it's just kind of managed chaos right now, which is, by the way, most startups. And it was what they wanted was the very simple system that we use in our own company. And it was, I, knowing what I am saying to you today, was almost embarrassed to offer it to them. Matter of fact, I haven't really offered it to them yet, but we've at least kicked it around. But I haven't made a formal offer to them because I'm like, this is so stupid obvious. But it's not. I mean, I know that. To them, they need it. It's valuable. They would pay money for it, maybe. But if not, somebody would. So that's what we want to do, is we want to just define where you are, define the problem you solve, find somebody who's got that problem, and make an offer. That's a business. The rest is details. The rest is details. And oddly enough, what I just said, define the problem you solve, yeah, that's, some people can do that. Usually you overthink it and find the one person, that's a little harder, right? Making an offer. That's almost like going and getting a root canal. People, you do not want to, I do not want to. There's resistance for making an offer because we think it's not good enough. We're ashamed of what we're offering. I think, I forget his name, Reid Hoffman, I think, the founder of LinkedIn, said, and I'm paraphrasing, if you wait till your product is good enough, if you're not ashamed of your product, if you wait until you're not ashamed of your product to launch it, you've waited too late. In other words, what you first sell people, you're going to feel like it's garbage. You will. You will feel that way. I feel that way every single time. I'm feeling this is garbage. It's not my best stuff. But they don't need my best stuff. They need their problem solved. Right? There's a difference. So, all right. So, why does this work? You focus on getting a customer, and as if you get the one customer, if you have to solve the one problem, you get what I said is instant feedback. You start making a little money before you spend a bunch of money, and you learn if your idea actually works in the real world. It's in the wild now. You start seeing, this works, this doesn't. Most people skip this. Most people spend all their time getting ready and planning and never doing. I'm saying just flip it. Just do. Matter of fact, you're better off just going out there talking to people and listening to their problems and saying, I could fix that. I could help you with that. And just giving them prices. We think we got to have things all together. But let me just tell you, as a startup, whether you're going to start up with venture capital, with angel capital, with bootstrap, whether it's just you or you and a team, it's going to be a disaster every day. And I don't mean in a terrible way, losing all our money, but it's just going to feel like chaos. That's normal. And if you're not feeling that way, you're probably not moving fast enough. Chaos is part of it. And part of what entrepreneurs usually thrive on, they kind of like the chaos. It's creative. We're creating. We're generating every day. What we don't do is go to a whole bunch of meetings and decide what we're going to talk about at the next meeting. That's big company business, right? We don't want to do that. And most of you want to run away from that. You want to get rid of a bunch of boring meetings where nothing happens, and it's just nothing. There's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's nothing. You want to get away from that. Well, the path out is to get closer to chaos. That may not be the answer you want to hear, but that's the path out. And that's true even if you don't want to start your own company. You want to go to work for a smaller organization, you're going to be closer to chaos because that's how they work, right? So let me give you a challenge for this week. Here's my challenge to you. And so, keep me honest, I wrote it down. It's write down one problem you could solve for somebody this week. Now you probably should write down, just start writing until you say that one problem. And it's probably what you do every day. It's probably the problems you solve all the times as you don't even recognize as problems. And you might need to talk to your spouse or some friends or some coworkers and say, hey, what do I do that's really awesome? Where am I awesome? To get that one idea. And then reach out to people that you think might have that problem. It doesn't matter if they do or not. You're not going to go beating on their front door and trying to sell them encyclopedias. You're just going to say, hey, I'm working on a business to solve that problem. Do you know anybody who needs this? What do you think? Just start talking to people. There's a weird thing. Customers are real people. Money exchanges hands with real people. You need to talk to people. Okay. So number 3, ask if they'd be interested in you helping them solve their problem. Right. So I may have jumped the gun there, but there we go. This is no money, no fancy tools, just conversation. Now you may be saying, wait a minute. The problem I can solve requires equipment. I'm going to use something like a landscaping business, for instance. I do, on my day job, I do a lot of landscaping, and we need bobcats, and we need equipment, we need dump trucks. That stuff's expensive, right? And I need to go buy that before I get my first job. That's natural if you're thinking that. That's natural. I can't show up with garbage. I got to have logos on my truck. I got to look like I've been in business for 30 years and have a clean truck and all this kind of stuff. I get that. That's flawed thinking, but I get that thinking. That's not what you need. What you do with most people that are successful in this is they go out, they get a job, and they say, okay, I'm going to need a dump truck. I'm going to need this equipment. And you go to the rental place and you rent it and you build that into the price. That's what big contractors do. Unless you need it every day, they don't buy it. Big companies rent stuff all the time. Why buy it? Why be in debt? Just rent it until you need it. And if you use it so much it makes sense to buy it, then do it. This is true whether you're in the video business, there's rental companies. I know friends of mine that work for rental companies that they specialize in renting audio video equipment because it's a demand, right? So it doesn't matter what you are doing. The resources are out there for you to borrow or rent to get the job done. So forget buying, forget the websites, forget the contracts, forget all the legal stuff. Just go do it. I'm not saying forget it forever, but you just want to go, take care of what you've got to take care of. So if you're tired of this thinking and not moving, now maybe you enjoy, and I'm going to just challenge you here because many of us might enjoy thinking. We enjoy thinking about new ideas. We want to go talk to our friends about how we're going to start something. And we know, we all know those people, and maybe we are those people. And they're always going to do something. My challenge to you is be the one who does. Unless you just enjoy thinking about it and that's what you want to do, then just admit it. I just like thinking about it. I'm not going to do it. The doing it is different. So if you want help, if you are in this, I offer strategy sessions to help you think through, to pinpoint, because most of us are blind about, or we have blinders on, and we're not blind totally. We don't see the opportunities in front of us. You're overlooking it, and it's simpler than you think, over and over and over again. And it's really easy to spot, especially as long as I've been doing this. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'm not even going to put the link up there. But if you are looking for ideas, go to DaleCallahan.com/idea engine, and there'll be a link down here in the notes to it. It's to help you to brainstorm ideas of what to do that will help you flesh this out a little bit. It's a great place to start. The other thing is you'll find all this in the notes at DaleCallahan.com/214. This is episode number 214. But look, stop waiting. Just start doing something. And it will feel weird. It will feel uncomfortable. It will feel like you're a phony. It will feel all those things. And if it does, then you're in perfect company. You're right there with all the major founders, because that's how they all feel. See you next week.